Hi there, in this video you're going to learn about discount. Your objectives for today are to solve real-world problems involving discount. First of all, I need you to remember that percent equation is part equals percent as a decimal times whole, and the percent proportion is part over whole equals percent times 100. You need to make sure that you know how to do both of them. It doesn't matter which one you want to use, but just be familiar with both because I'm going to be explaining the examples with both, okay? All right, here's our first example. Summer Sports is having a sale. Volleyball has an original price of $59. It is on sale for 65% off the original price. Find the sale price of the volleyball. Okay, so the original price is $59. That's your whole. It is on sale for 65% off. So you are figuring out what number is 65% of $59, right? That represents your discount. And then you are going to figure out what the price is afterwards. Okay, so let's figure out our part. So what is 65%, right, of $59? 0.65 times $59. So just multiply those two. You would get 38.35. Okay, so this represents your discount. $38.35 is your discount. So if that's what 65% represents, you would subtract $59 minus $38.35, okay, to get your selling price of $20.65. Okay, so after it's discounted, the selling price would be $20.65. Now, there's another way to solve these sorts of problems. You could find the total percent that you, the consumer, would be paying for first. Okay, so think about it like this. If the original price of the volleyball is $59, this represents 100%. Now, it's on sale for 65% off. So if this represents 100% and you're paying some sort of price that is 65% off, okay, you would do 100% minus 65%, okay? And that's whatever percent you get, that's the price, that's a percent of the price that you're actually paying for at the end. So think about it like this, right? This represents 100%. You're paying 65% less. Okay, so you would do 100 minus 65 to get 35%. So in other words, you, the consumer, is only paying for 35% of $59, right? So let's find 35% of $59. Part equals percent times your whole. So you are figuring out what is 35%. So move the decimal over 2 places to the left, 0.35 times $59. You would get $20.65. So your total selling price is $20.65. $20.65 represents the 35% that you, the consumer, are actually paying for. Okay, using either method, you still get $20.65. Let's look at another example. Henrique had a 25% discount on hockey equipment. The selling price was $172.50. What was the original price? All right, so now you know what the selling price is and you know how much the discount was, but you need to figure out what the original price was. Okay, so if the amount of the discount is 25%, the selling price was 100%, right, minus 25%. So think about it like this. All right, so he had a 25% off discount. So in other words, he was actually only paying for 75%, okay? The selling price that he paid for, this price right here, only represents 75% of whatever the original cost is. So your job is to figure out $172 is 75% of what number, okay? This represents only 75%. He only paid 75% of the total cost, of the original cost, I should say. Okay, so he only paid 75% of the original cost. Your job is to figure out what that original cost was. So you can ask yourself, $172.50 is 75% of what number? Right here, this is screaming for a proportion, so we are going to do the percent proportion here. Okay, $172.50 is, so that goes at the top, 75%, 75 goes at the top, of what number? You have a variable. Now you can cross multiply and solve. 172.5 times 100 is equal to 75R. 172.5 times 100 gets you 17,250 is equal to 75R. Divide both sides by 75 and you get R to be 230. So in other words, the original price was $230. Okay, let's look back just in case we don't understand. The original price $230, but he only paid $172.50 because he only paid for 25% off of that. Or in other words, he paid for 75%. Okay? All right, moving on. Cody is buying a ring that had an original price of $295, but is advertised at 30% off. Sales tax of 8.25% is applied to the discounted price. How much will Cody pay for the ring? Okay, so first thing you need to do is figure out what the discounted price is. So let's look at this. Let's only pay attention to this first sentence here. Cody is buying a ring that had an original price of $295, but it's advertised at 30% off. Okay, figure out what is 30% off of $295. So if the amount of discount is 30%, the discounted price would be 100% minus 30%, or 70%. Think about it like this. This represents 100%, okay? He is getting 30% off, so he is only paying 70%, okay? So let's figure out what is 70% of $295. Okay, find 70% of 295. Part equals percent times whole. So D is equal to percent, so 70% as a decimal is 0.7 times your whole times 295. 0.7 times 295 gets you 206.5, okay? And then from there, that is what the discounted price is. So originally it cost $295. After the 30% off, it now costs $206.50. Now, at this step, you would then add the sales tax. So in this case, we have 8.25% is the sales tax, okay? So now we need to add the sales tax. So if this represents the total cost that he's paying for, okay, this represents 100%, and he is paying for an additional 8.25%, okay? This represents 100%, he's paying an additional 8.25%. So total, he's paying for 108.25%, okay, of this price. So let S represent the selling price or the amount Cody paid, and let's do this. Part equals percent times your whole. Okay, figure out what is 108.25% of 206.50. So we don't know what our part is, but we do know that it's 108.25%. Move the decimal over 2 places to the left, so you get 1.0825 times 206.5. No, do not round this, okay? Don't round this. You get a more exact answer at the end if you don't round this, okay? All right, now that we got that established, move the decimal over 2 places to the left, 1.0825, okay? Times 206.5, because we're figuring out what is 108.25% of this price. So let's do this. Multiply the two numbers. You get $223 and about 54 cents. Okay? So Cody is actually paying $223.54. So some concluding thoughts here. You could either find the discount first and then subtract later, or you could just go straight to finding out the total percent you are actually paying for. This was what was shown in the very last example. All right, I hope you learned about discount. Thank you for watching.